I'm pleased to have Gabriel Byrne back at this table. Welcome.
Thank you, Shirley.
Now, what is this I hear about Dr. Paul is Dr. McDreamy? And that all over. Now, listen to this. This is the New York Times. This is not a gossip magazine.
Yeah.
He listens, he cares, he isn't real. It's this testimony of all these people, men and women, who are mad for your character. What is going on?
In the broader picture, I think that people are very interested, in fact, to a certain extent, obsessed with the notion of therapy, the idea of sharing your private life with a stranger. And the more inhospitable sometimes and hostile the world becomes, the more we need to be heard, to have our stories validated by somebody else, even if we have to pay them to listen. Compassion and empathy and vulnerability are also parts of the makeup of this character.
He has his own therapist.
And he has his own therapist. And he's although he's an authority figure, he's not by any means perfect. He has his own issues, as they say, and he's finding it hard to deal with the things that a great many people have to deal with at a certain age in life, the passage through middle age, the re-examination of his marriage, his identity, his sexuality, his sexual life, his children, and who he is in relation to his patients. So you get to see the human side of him, and the series brings up a lot of very interesting themes that I think are pertinent to the society that we live in.
Themes like?
There's a very strong character played by one of a young actress from Australia,
I was on my bicycle,
where you hear the
and
teenage
a car
voice.
hit me, and I don't remember what happened next.
There's nothing that filters, there's no filter between it. It's an authentic teenage voice. A couple who have been married for many, many years, who are beginning to re-examine their relationship and why they're married, played by Bette Davis. And so there's a lot of pertinent themes that I think one of the great things about the series is that it allows the audience to be in the room with the patient and the doctor, and it allows them to engage in two separate roles. You are both doctor, where you get to judge the patient, where you say, come on, get your act together, you're bonkers, you shouldn't be saying that. And also you get to empathize because something in what they say is reflective of your own life. So the third person in that room is always the audience.
Do you recognize me?
No, I don't.
Okay, let me help you. The Madrasa murderer. Does that mean anything to you?
No.
It wasn't that long ago. A U.S. Navy aircraft hit a target on the outskirts of Baghdad. Naval intelligence identified the structure as an insurgent safe house, a bunker. It turns out it's a madrasa. Let me tell you what that is. It's an Islamic religious school. Boys like bees in a beehive studying the Quran. 16 of them dead. Rings a bell?
Yes, I remember that, yes.
So that's me. I flew that mission. Madrasa murderer.
And I think that's one of the great strengths of the writing. And the idea that you have two people sitting in a room listening to each other is probably, sounds like a very simple, almost naive concept in terms of drama. But you're asking people to do something that they're not used to doing, which is to watch and to really listen. And the job of the therapist is to really listen. And so therefore, it brought up many questions for me about the whole notion of what it means to listen. And the research that I did for the role was based around watching people and how they listen to other people.
How did you do that?
Well, I watched several people whose job it is in the professional world to listen. And I started off watching some tapes of Dick Cavett from years ago, and how he listened. And then I watched some other people, and I won't say who else, but it's obvious when you watch these people that they are connected and that they are listening. You can see it in their faces, that they're involved in what the other person has to say. And those people you can also see when they're not really interested and they're not really listening, because that's human too, because not everything everybody says is intensely gripping and interesting. So I was in a cafe one day and I saw a man and a woman talking together, and I was moved by the way she was caught up in everything that he was saying. And the act of her listening to him reminded me of that phrase, that to really listen is a form of love. You know.
One of the things that, I'm struck by this because of what we do here, and we view the person at home as sitting at the table, engaged in the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm struck by the idea, that some of the most exciting dimension of drama is just two people engaged by each other.
It is a very complicated process. I've found that when you're actually, like any other process of engagement, when you really are engaged, you aren't thinking or wondering about anything else. That becomes a kind of a complex thing when you're an actor, because you do have to think about things like, what's the next line, or, do I move over here? That part of your brain sort of works on that. But the actual engagement, the listening, is complex. I first came across the notion of listening, I suppose. Freud actually said, I suppose the father of psychoanalysis, he said that the one race, in his opinion, that was resistant to the notion of psychoanalysis were the Irish.
Did you know what he meant?
Well, I don't know what he meant, but he said an awful lot of daft things as well. He said that every male, wants to sleep with his mother.
Yeah, I know. People think that's the part he got wrong.
Yeah, so, you don't take everything that he says, verbatim. But I think what he was referring to was the notion that the Catholic Church had invented the notion of therapy 2,000 years before him. Because if you think about what the confessional means, it is actually the same process as therapy, where you go into a room that is sacrosanct, where trust is accepted and, demanded and given. And you tell your innermost secrets to a stranger, and you are, in the end, forgiven. You get a little bit of a penance, of course, if you're Catholic. If it's therapy, you have to pay. But basically, the idea is the same. And I think that in ancient societies, there was always an elder or a shaman, somebody who took on the emotional travails of the society and listened. And the elders, the wise elders of the tribe. And we live in communities now that are so fractured that who do we talk to? I walked down 7th Avenue last night, and I just decided I would look in every kind of cafe that I saw, and there were so many people sitting by themselves, having dinner by themselves, and I thought, wow, who are they?
And two seats away is somebody else having dinner by themselves, and you say, why don't they tell each other stories?
Yes, yes.
I also go to restaurants, and it seems to me that in this case, women talk more intently to each other.
I think I envy women that kind of intimate camaraderie that they have, where they can speak seemingly in an uncensored way about their emotional lives. They'll get together in a group and they'll talk about men and their husbands and how they feel. There's a great scene in a Cassavetes film, I think it's called Husbands, with Peter Falk and John Cassavetes, where they all get drunk and they end up in a hotel room and they start to talk and to reveal. I think that in the culture, at least in the culture that I came from in Ireland, the notion of revealing who you are intimately and who you are deep down as a man was somehow regarded as a form of weakness, and perhaps a little bit shameful that you had feelings. Feelings were actually things that should not be encouraged.
Because in part this is a thing that women do, and therefore if men do it...
If men do it, then it shows you're maybe...
You're less
masculine. You're less masculine.
Somebody who is more bravado.
Yes.
Or macho.
Yes. And it's a curious thing that in Europe, I think we have a much more cynical attitude towards the notion of therapy. And although psychoanalysis came out of 19th century Europe, Americans seem to have embraced it in a much more open way. We still tend... it's funny, people will say to me, and yourself, are you in... there's still a kind of a stigma attached to the notion of therapy, you know.
And the answer is?
And the answer is no. As somebody said, Freud should have had his head examined. There's many people
who own that line. It's great.
There are several people who have suggested that it would be a wise course for me to adopt, and that I would benefit enormously from it.
Women or men? In every case,
both. Women. I have to say, it wasn't restricted to any singular sex. It was people out of concern for my general well-being. But I think that maybe going back to Freud there for a second, when he talked about the Irish being resistant to the notion of therapy, is that we did, maybe not so much anymore, but we did tend to talk a lot, and we tended to escape into a world that wasn't about... There's something very logical and very practical about explaining what is wrong with you. And Irish people, according to Anthony Burgess anyway, sought refuge in the world of storytelling and imagination, poetry and theatre and so forth. And that's where they got their therapy.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, as you were saying that, I thought, maybe it is because they did have the capacity to express themselves, and people who are best served by therapy need some help in expressing themselves, need someone there that listens most of all and knows how to guide and ask the right questions. I mean, I often say to people, questions are as important as answers.
Oh, God, often. Yes, absolutely. In fact, there doesn't even have to be an answer. I think sometimes the question is enough. In Hamlet, the most famous question that Hamlet asks is to be or not to be. There can't be an answer to that. And yet he does go on to try and explain it, but Shakespeare doesn't give an answer to it. Sometimes, maybe, and this is just a kind of a theory of my own, that maybe we're not meant to know the answers to certain questions. Because if we did, there wouldn't be such a thing as faith, for example.
Because it's unanswerable.
Because it's unanswerable, and it's meant to be unanswerable.
I've had people tell me that the doctor just sits there. Now, your guy is engaged and listens, and there's a certain vulnerability, in fact, about him that makes him compelling to people. I mean, but for a lot of people, I say, what did you do in your session? And they say, I just talked. Now, that may be good if not talking is repression.
To reveal who you are truly to another human being, I think, requires great bravery. I think that we all tend to have secret kind of rooms in our selves that nobody ever really gets the key to, and we're entitled to those secrets. It's whether the secrets are actually preventing you from becoming who you really are, that they become repressive. And I also, one of the things that I did learn about doing this series, again, yes, I was playing a pretend guy, but it did give me an insight into what they have to do for a living, and I respect it. I used to call them shrinks. I don't anymore. I call them, therapists or psychoanalysts or whatever. Is that subjective reality is always suspect. What you actually truly believe about yourself, sometimes needs to be taken out and looked at and examined by an objective party, because you can lack self-esteem and you can doubt yourself and you can be really hard on yourself, and it can be a very damaging thing because it remains within oneself. When you take it out of oneself and put it on the table, it loses its power to a certain extent over yourself. Having said that, I met a guy the other day who said to me, he said, "You know what? I love your show. I never missed this show. You know, I've been in analysis for 40 years."
I know.
And I thought,
is it working?
What? And he was just a guy who came up when I was eating and just started talking to me and didn't say anything, just started telling me.
Well, there are a lot of well-known people who have been in it 19, 20 years, I know.
Yes.
You know, and sort of seem to say they get a lot out of it and understand themselves.
Yes.
But you would think that at some point...
Yes, they would say,
graduate.
okay, they would graduate. I mean, there's one particular filmmaker
I know I'll hear from psychiatrists on that.
Who's been in therapy for years and years.
I know who he is, too.
You know he is. But his answer, I think, is what would have been if I hadn't been in therapy.
Well, and that I'm a better filmmaker because of it.
Maybe.
I think he thinks that.
I think he thinks that. And if he thinks that, then, you know...
But I also know filmmakers, speaking of, like Mike Nichols, who I know nothing about his history in therapy, if he has one, but the fact that he likes for his actors, before they start, to sit around a table and show some vulnerability, to share some secret, to do something that creates connections between the actors and the director. Something about vulnerability gives you're giving somebody ownership to you, or at least you're giving them a connection that they didn't have before, if you share something, and vice versa.
I think that's what I suppose artists and communicators, writers, painters, actors do by exposing themselves. They do what those ancient shaman guys do, is that they go to the place that you maybe don't have to go to. Maybe that sounds a little bit pedantic to say that, but I think that the more vulnerable an actor is, and the more vulnerable more honest a writer is, the more power they have, and the more powerfully they can touch people.
And the more they have to draw on something that's very raw and real.
Yes, telling the truth.
Yeah. Let's talk about how this got started. I want to come back to this. Is fascinating stuff to me. This began as not yours in treatment, but there was an Israeli program that is a runaway hit.
Yes, huge hit in Israel. The biggest hit they've ever had in Israel.
On primetime television.
On primetime television.
And how did it end up at HBO, and how did they end up with you?
Well, the initial program was brought by a woman from Israeli television to HBO. And I saw the first episode of that. It was the only one I saw. And it struck me because it looked like it was shot with a handy cam and buses and cars going by outside and people in a cheap office trying to communicate about their lives. And it was compelling. And I watched the first episode, didn't watch any more than that. HBO thought, okay, therapy is very much, you know, some people would say it's almost like a religion in America. And so therefore it made sound kind of sense. So Rodrigo Garcia Marquez...
son of Gabriel.
Yes, and he was the man responsible for collating the scripts with Stephen Levinson, who did Entourage at HBO. And they brought this concept and basically took these scripts, worked on them with other writers, and I suppose, for want of a better word, made them palatable to an American audience.
So one way it's different from the original Israeli production is that it's more what?
I suppose the guy has a better office. It's lit in a way that gives it a certain hyper kind of reality, and I think that it deals with themes that, funnily enough, the same themes that people are dealing with in Israel, strangely enough, are the same kind of problems that people are dealing with in America and in Ireland and everywhere else. Where's my marriage going? As a teenager, who am I? In this one, we have the part of a pilot who was taking part in a bombing raid over Iraq, and about his how his feelings come to the surface after that raid, and how he feels about his involvement in that and the deaths of innocent people in a village.
Now,
So,
watch you. You're doing your hands like this. I'm reading the New York Times. All right?
you were the New York Times.
Taking in the world from the depths of his leather armchair, Paul is all ears and eyes and hands, steepled, clasped in contemplation or lingering at it. Look at you there, you're nailed down.
Yeah.
Paul is all ears and eyes and hands steepled, clasped in contemplation or lingering at his cheek. Those hands especially express empathy better than words. Quote, they're like an artist's hands. I watch them all the time, said Neon Fish, a fashion publicist in New York. In her mind, Mr. Byrne and Paul, the 50th psychotherapist he plays, are fused. It's hard to say whether it is a fantasy of those fingers trailing across their skin or the promise of the emotional deliverance that so rivets fans of the show, women in particular.
Well, as one gallops towards one's dotage, and the chill winds of mortality blow around one's perpendiculars, it's a nice thing to have said.
It is one. Indeed. Do not receive this.
Receive it with
joy,
with joy
and appreciation.
Absolutely.
Well said, sir.
I can't argue with any of that, and God bless that woman.
Exactly.
Mrs. Fisher or Miss Fisher.
Fish or whatever. Well, let's repeat her name because she said it so well.
Yes.
Neon Fish, a fashion publicist in New York. So you come here. It's HBO puts it on starting in January. It's on 5 nights a week.
Yes.
5 nights a week.
Yeah. Kind of a revolutionary concept for drama on American television. Something that has worked in British television, I know, because the half-hour format for drama has been on the air there for like 30, 40 years. 23 million people watch 3 times a week from 7:30 to 8 o'clock a half-hour drama called Coronation Street, the longest-running drama series in the world.
5 nights a week, a strip.
Yeah, 5 nights a week. So I suppose it is a revolutionary concept in terms of its scheduling and its planning. But that's what's kind of exciting about it too. And I also think that fits into the idea of how, as an audience, we've changed. There was a time when we could sit and we could watch Peter Falk unfold over an hour, Columbo or Kojak investigate a case or whatever, and an hour didn't seem like an hour in those days. Our attention spans and what we demand of fiction in terms of, we get it. I remember showing Dog Day Afternoon, which is one of my favourite films, to a group of school kids in Brooklyn. And they were saying, like, we get it. We know they're going to... we have changed in the way we watch television. So maybe the half-hour television, or maybe the 5-minute download on the telephone, which one of those kids said he thought was the future of film. Why do you have to spend an hour and a half telling a story when actually you can tell the story in 5 minutes? And so...
These are kids you were showing Dog Day Afternoon to.
Yeah. They said, why do you have to take so long to see them outside the bank and then inside the bank and outside the bank?
Just give us
what happens.
Because we know where it's headed.
The bank and we know where it's headed.
Yeah. I hope you'll be able to explain to them that...
Well, I could only explain to them from the point of view of what the film meant in 1970, but the truth about it is they, as viewers, demand... and have learned a different visual language to the language that we understood and accepted for, in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s.
It's instant feedback and instant results and instant satisfaction.
Exactly. And it ties into that. And I also...
So what does that mean for dramatists and people who are trying to create plays in theater? I mean, the audience out there is changing so much that that they should be doing 5-minute short stories?
I mean, Charles Dickens wrote for for the newspapers,
Wrote a serial.
and he wrote a serial,
right?
And they understood the power of leaving the audience after a page and a half, waiting for the next installment. I honestly think we've changed in the way we look at films and the way we look at television, and even the way we absorb news. And that's why I think that a program like this, which asks an audience to do something which we find, I think, a little bit more and more difficult to do now, because of the barrage of stimuli that assault us from one end of the day to the other, which is actually to sit down and listen. And if the program achieves that, and you listen to people talking, I think that's in its way it's a kind of a breakthrough.
Did the writers think of you when they were writing the script?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. Rodrigo Garcia Marquez, the people at HBO, Stephen Levinson, I don't know what they had in mind, because the truth about it is that every therapist is... it's not like people... If I was playing a guy who was a boat builder, you'd have people saying things like, you'd never build a boat like that. You'd never use a hammer like that. People are always critical of when you do stuff like that. You never ride a horse like that. When you take out a sword, you take it out. So the experts are always ready.
There are no experts here?
Because they're all in rooms, being themselves.
And it's all private.
And it's all private.
Confidential.
So one guy can't say to another guy, oh, look, here's what I do.
Did you talk to psychiatrists about this kind of role? What would a psychiatrist be, think, do in a session?
I asked a friend of mine, I asked him, what do you do if you have somebody who's really boring? Because...
Boring?
Boring. Because... in drama, because drama is drama. Drama cuts out the kind of boring bits. He said there's something horrendously difficult about having the door open and you see this person come in again, and it's year 6, and you knew the answer to his problem, after 2 weeks, but he's still here, and he's still going on, and you're saying to him, but listen, here's what you need to do. You need to leave your wife. And he said, yeah, but, the thing about it is the price of apples in China are like... You say, no, you need to lose, And he said he would dig his hands into his palms to prevent himself from either falling asleep or rushing headlong across the table to try to choke this guy.
It reminds me of somebody said that the guy had his finger in his mouth all the time. He said, I don't know why. Why am I so palsy? What do I do, doctor? He said, take your finger out of your mouth.
Yes.
That's a start. And do not put it back.
Yes.
Now, has all of this made you in any way, because you're an actor and you're a celebrity and your life is public, want to go into therapy and just see where it might take you?
Yes. I think that I come from a culture that encourages, as we said earlier on, silence, and silence about oneself. And I guess I've come to an age where I don't think that silence is necessarily the best way to go. And it's a curious thing that when you admit something about yourself that you feel is something that people will find reprehensible, you find that you reach them in a way that is often very moving and surprising, because they say, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I felt that. The things that we're afraid to admit, like envy or greed or jealousy or fear or getting older or how we're perceived by women or whatever it is that we tend not to talk about, that when you actually do have the kind of the strength to be able to say that stuff out, in a way, puts it in a perspective.
And liberates.
And liberates you in a way.
So may you do this.
Yes, I would like to, because I have, like most people, a complex internal emotional life, and I don't really know the answers to many things, actually.
Is the most traumatic thing about men our relationship with women?
The culture judges women in a very different way than it judges men. It tends to judge women, in my opinion, it tends to judge them on their physicality, which is why when I read something like that, and I as a man am judged on my physicality,
Yes.
in a way that is unusual, because that's usually the way they talk about women.
The way men talk about women.
The way...
Yeah, and it's restrictive.
Yes.
Well, clearly restrictive.
Yes.
You know, if that's your standard.
Yes. I remember somebody said to me, "Oh yeah, that film was really successful. How did you feel when that film came out?" I said, "Well, here's what I felt like. I felt like I was a woman who agreed to meet a man in a bar and got the time wrong, and the bar was full of men, and she hadn't got a newspaper or a book or her cell phone, and she had to sit there and try to make out that everything was totally cool. In other words, attention was focused on you in a way that was not necessarily complimentary or comfortable."
Yeah. This character is vulnerable. He's seeing his own therapist. Now, is that a dramatic device necessary so that somehow we have a glimpse into his internal life as he glimpses into the internal life of his patients?
I think it's a brilliant dramatic device, because as soon as you know what's inside his head, you then bring that information into the room with you the next time he sees a client. So you say, "This guy's bonkers, but look, he's handling this pretty well." It's a brilliant dramatic device. And I think the notion of a man being vulnerable, I think, is something that I like to explore. I did a
Like to explore?
Yeah, I like to explore it. I did an art project with a brilliant young British artist called Sam Taylor Wood. Is a photographer, and she did a series of photographs called Men Crying.
Yeah.
And so she chose several men, and the conceit of it was that you went into this hotel room, and she set up her camera, and she just waited for you to cry. And it asked a very interesting question. Women access tears much more easily than men do. I think men tend, especially if you look at amateur or like acting classes, for example, the male actors will tend to go towards anger, the women will tend to go towards tears. The idea of men crying was an interesting one. And I wondered how long it would take me to cry. And I think I started to cry under probably in less than a minute, because the things that I called to mind made me cry. And when I looked at the photograph afterwards, I thought to myself, that looks totally fake, even though I know that I was really crying. And I wanted to see how far I could open up in that way, opening up in public. Now, opening up in private is a very different thing. Opening up intimately to another person is a very, I think, very difficult. It's where well, at least where I'm not great, really, in terms of revealing myself. But
even to people that love you?
Yes. Yeah.
Or especially to people that love you,
probably especially to people who love you. Because in a way you kind of want to be perfect for them. You don't want them to see the Achilles heel. You don't want them to be critical of you. And again, I suppose that hangover from maybe an Irish Catholic youth, or the culture of masculinity, that revealing vulnerability is somehow weak.
But it's attractive to this character, and that's what some of these people in the New York Times say, too, that it's his vulnerability.
Yes.
Let's go to clip number 2, where Laura, who we really want to talk about, talks about her relationship with her boyfriend from in treatment, and then just let your imagination go and wonder what the good doctor is thinking about when he thinks about Laura. Here it is.
We talked about what happened at the club last night, but we never got back to actually talking about Andrew and that argument yesterday.
I don't want to be put in this position. I don't want to have this power to decide our future for both of us. I just don't.
Do you have any idea why Andrew chose this particular time?
What do you mean?
Do you think that Andrew, just out of the blue, as you said yourself, came up with this idea of an ultimatum? Did you notice anything over the last couple of days or weeks that you think might have brought this on?
Nothing. I don't know. He just lost it. Don't you know that men are the new women? Obsessed with weddings and children. And lately, he's lost touch with reality. He thinks I'm seeing someone. That's how this whole thing started. It's unbelievable.
But I thought you said it came out of nowhere. You were watching TV and then suddenly...
Well, we were watching TV, but before that, we were having dinner, and he had this look on his face. He had this sad look, and I could just tell something was up. I mean, you can just tell, right? And I said to him, what's going on? And he said, I don't know what I want. I just know I don't want this on and off thing. So I said to him, sure, and then let's just decide. Either we get married or we split.
So you were the one who came up with it?
With what?
The ultimatum.
No, he's the one. He had the problem with the on and off thing, not me.
Yeah, but on and off can mean several things. You were the one who made it specific. To get married or to split up, that was your ultimatum.
No. He had this thing with this on and off. The ultimate...
I mean, this is not just a guy sitting back listening. Tell me about your boyfriend. It is focused and directed and making her come to grips with whose ultimatum was what and who was responsible for them getting to that crisis point.
Yes, there's a whole subtext between those two characters.
No kidding.
Because what you have there is a classic formula for conflict. The older man pursuing a younger woman.
She tells him in session, I'm in love with you.
Your
Actually,
bathroom
I
is
prefer my patients to use the...
But you just said that the toilet overflowed.
Why don't we just finish up for today? I can owe you the 10 minutes when you come back next week.
What, you're afraid your wife will see me? Or that I'll see her? Is she even home now? I mean, what, is she sitting on the couch with rollers in her hair, drinking beer?
Laura, this has nothing to do with my wife.
Okay, fine, forget it. If it freaks you out that much. Well, I bet that didn't come up in med school, did it? What to do in the following situation? A patient in love with a therapist asks to use the bathroom. The bathroom is out of order. The patient then asks to enter the therapist's home. What should the therapist do?
Laura, I'm sorry.
The correct answer is it depends on what the therapist feels towards his patient.
Laura, I can see that you might interpret this
Don't
as...
interpret, Paul.
So, erotic transfer, which I thought was one of these kind of urban myths that, you know, that never really happened, it seems to be an actual fact of life for people in therapy. And there's also counter-transference, where the doctor also picks up on the attraction and becomes also attracted. How could you not? It's understandable how these situations could develop, because a friend of mine also told me that he was recommended a patient who walked through the door, and he said one of the most stunning-looking women that he had ever seen. And he immediately thought, I want to go out with this woman. I want to sleep with her, and I want to marry her, and I want to live with her forever, and I want to have children with her. And he had 30 seconds to make up his mind as to whether he would reject her or be her patient. And
allow her to be his patient. Wait.
For him to take her on as a patient, because once he did that, then ethically,
his professional ethics would prove up. And
he said he would take her on, and so he suffered agonies of buried, thoughts and imagination and so forth.
I also think that you got to be intelligent and smart enough to realize, to fully explore yourself, so that you find someone who's your age or even older, who clearly might not look like a model in Vogue, but who you realize has all these extraordinary things that appeal to every stimulus in you. You just got to find out where it is.
There's a great little paragraph in I don't know if you've read this book. It's called Love and Politics: The Road to the White House, the story of the Clintons.
Yes, it's written by Sally Bedell Smith.
Sally Bedell Smith. Well, there's a little paragraph in that where Bill brings home Hillary to the mother for the first time, and the mother is less than impressed and thinks, maybe, you should have married, or you should be thinking about marrying somebody else. And he
a beauty queen.
Yeah, he says to the mother, "You don't understand. I need somebody to talk to."
Well said. And I agree.
I thought it was an interesting.
And I do too. And I agree with. And they're still together.
And
by
he
the
was
way,
20 when he said that.
They're still together, notwithstanding all kinds of.
It's very interesting to watch their body language.
How is it?
Together, extremely interesting. I mean, I don't think they have to be physically in proximity to connect. I think that watching those debates and watching how Obama, John Edwards, and say Hillary Clinton are forced to answer questions. The furious listening that goes on there as the Rolodex and the thing goes in the back of the head to say, okay, well, I can't say that. I better steer clear of that. I better be really clear. And how they listen with such ferocious intensity. And then, on the other hand, come out with these answers that they hope will, be the answer that's expected.
And are generally banal.
And won't alienate the group that they hope to.
And everybody knows it, and they look at it as a political answer, and it takes them nowhere.
The body language is fascinating, though,
because you see the wheels turning.
You see the wheels turning.
But see, I thought you were talking about the body language between Mrs. Senator Clinton and former President Clinton. Whatever it is, because I'm convinced they deeply care of each other, and they're deeply supportive of each other, and there's some broader connection that goes beyond what.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a picture on the front of that book where they are both applauding somebody who's been saying something, but she's whispering into his ear, and although she's going through the act of applause, what she's saying to him and the way he's listening to it in that photograph says it all.
It is the most exciting drama beyond whatever it is happening to Senator Obama in American politics right now. A close second, which is a connection between an audience and history and all this kind of stuff. And we don't know how this is going to turn out, but there is the drama of Senator Clinton and President Clinton and his role and how what this means to them. All of that is a powerful curiosity at this moment that I haven't seen anywhere. There are more elements of deep psychology taking place. The psychology of a nation troubled by its reputation, troubled by loss of how it viewed itself.
For sure.
Looking and how it's searching to find that.
One thing that I have noticed as somebody who came to this country, I suppose, quite late. I came here in 1988, and I used to remark to friends of mine, perhaps unfairly, when it comes to politics, Americans lack passion. It was at a peculiar time in American politics. And it was after the Vietnam War, and it was before.
Right.
And I used to say, they don't get passionate about anything. They seem to be like asleep. But now, one of the things that's happened is that people are passionate about politics in a way that I've never experienced. People in Ireland are passionate about American politics.
I know. Someone told me, I did a show in London 2 days ago, and it was on 2 nights ago. And one of the people there, an Oxford guy, basically said, you Americans don't understand. This is our election too. We're all caught up in this election.
Yes,
you know?
Of course. It's like that thing of if America sneezes, everybody else gets a cold.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But there's an element also, I think, of the American Idol element of it, where it's become about who's going to win the race, and does he have charisma, and is she too domineering, and did she really mean that in the restaurant, and so forth. And you think that the line that exists and should exist very stringently between entertainment and politics has been blurred, constantly, so that we're now talking about personalities. And people say that Hillary Clinton isn't a funny woman. She is a funny woman.
Yeah, people say that who know her well say that.
Yeah, she's
but it doesn't get out
great
because of all the things you're saying.
Because too many people bring too many perceptions to the table when they come to appraise her. But definitely, it's the most exciting time to be alive.
Are you thrilled that you got this role because of the response to it? Because it gives you a chance to do some interesting things? I'm way over time, but I want to know that before I leave here.
I've spent a great deal of my career doing independent movies and working on the stage, and it has its own rewards, and a lot of the stuff that you do tends to come out and it tends to just disappear. Most of the time you head into a role and you hope, you give it everything and you hope it's successful. And you have to define what's successful for yourself. I did the best. That worked. That didn't work. This bit worked. Look, when you have a success, what is the point of saying, like when you leave your car into the garage, you don't want the guy to tell you what's right with it. You want the guy to tell you what you need to fix in it. And I really am at the stage now where I don't want to know what has to be fixed about it. I'm just kind of saying, I'm happy that I have the car and that it's got a good report.
And I think the lesson of our conversation is that I could fall in love with anybody of any age, whether they were 70 or 40, but you pretty much want to limit yourself to people your own age.
Yes. Well, yes. Because when I say the war in Iraq, and I say, like, there was a First World War and the Second World War, and there was a war in Iraq and in Korea and in Vietnam.
You want them to know what your reference is.
I want people to know what I'm talking about.
Well said.
So can I ask you, just as a last thing?
Yes, sir.
Are you in
therapy?
Yes.
No.
Okay,
but I would do it. I'm not. No.
Okay.
Does it sound like it?
Okay. Maybe I can fit you in between 4:45 and 5:30.
Oh, I'd be there.
Tuesday.
I should do it. The other thing I'm going to do, I can tell you this, and I hope you'll watch. I'm going to get if I can get them to do here, come, and one should certainly be a woman, one or more, but. Some psychiatrists to come and sit at this table, a therapist, and just talk about.
Yes.
You being,
yes,
a highly skilled production of one psychiatrist's life in fiction, and this being a conversation about it. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Charlie. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
As always. Thank you.
Listen, if you find the name of a good doctor, would you call me?
I will.
Gabriel Byrne for the hour. Thank you.